You arrive at the edge of the shoreline before the sun fully wakes. The light is soft, undecided, resting gently on the water. Nothing is asking you to move. You stand, and even standing feels like a quiet agreement between your body and the ground. Your breath drifts in. Your breath drifts out. The air is cool but not cold, and it carries a distant hum, the kind that exists whether you notice it or not. You feel the weight of yourself settling downward, through your feet, into the sand, as if the earth is listening too. Motion, you realize, is not the beginning. Stillness is. You sway just slightly, almost imperceptibly, and your body corrects without permission or thought. Balance happens before you ask for it. It always has. Once, long ago, you learned how to stand without remembering the lesson. Now you simply arrive here, upright, breathing, gently held together. This is how machines begin as well. Not with speed or strength, but with waiting, with listening, with quiet systems learning how not to fall. You imagine a machine standing where you stand now, unfamiliar with gravity, unfamiliar with itself. It does not know movement yet. It only knows pressure, contact, the soft insistence of the ground beneath it. Like you, it must learn where it ends and where the world begins. The shoreline stretches out, calm and patient. Waves move not because they are told to, but because motion has learned a rhythm over time. Each wave practices the same gesture again and again, never quite the same, never quite wrong. You breathe in slowly, and the rhythm becomes yours. In animals, movement begins this way too. Not with intention, but with sensation. A shift of weight, a subtle imbalance, a response that happens before thought arrives to name it. Robotics learns from this quiet truth, that motion is not commanded. It is discovered. You feel reassured by this, as if something important has been taken off your shoulders. No one expects perfection. Not from you. Not from a body. Not from a machine learning how to exist. Somewhere in the distance, a bird makes a sound that barely interrupts the air. You almost smile. Even the bird sounds like it is whispering, as if it knows this hour is meant for gentleness. Your body makes constant, invisible adjustments. Tiny shifts. Endless listening. Balance is never still even when you are. And yet it feels calm, like floating rather than standing. Machines learn balance the same way. They begin with quiet corrections, not calculations. A lean becomes information. A wobble becomes guidance. Falling is not failure. Falling is conversation. You let your shoulders soften. Gravity is doing most of the work anyway. You do not have to hold yourself together as tightly as you think. That thought feels warm, like a blanket you forgot you were wearing. The science of motion lives here, in this calm place. It does not shout. It does not rush. It waits for the body to respond, and then it listens to the response. A machine at rest is not empty. It is full of possibility. Sensors feel the ground. Structures sense tension. Nothing moves yet, but everything is aware. You notice how your breath gently moves your chest, without asking. Even now, motion is happening quietly, responsibly, without supervision. Your body has learned well. There is a kind of gentle humor in this. You spent years learning how to walk, and now you do it while thinking about completely unrelated things like whether waves ever get tired. They probably do not. They seem committed. The shoreline remains patient. The light grows just a little warmer, but nothing changes all at once. This is not a moment for sudden beginnings. In robotics, engineers often start by doing nothing. They let a machine stand. They let it feel. They wait to see how it listens. You understand this instinctively now. You breathe in. You breathe out. Stillness holds you like a promise. Movement will come later. It always does. But it never arrives before the body is ready. The first wave reaches the sand. It hesitates, thins, spreads, and retreats, leaving behind a darker trace where it touched. The sand remembers for a moment, then slowly forgets. You feel that too. A readiness forming. A curiosity stirring, not urgent, just awake. Behind you, behind the machine, behind every body that has ever learned to move, there is this same quiet beginning. A pause, a breath, a gentle agreement with the ground. The tide pulls back slightly now, as if preparing itself, gathering information from the shore before returning again. A little wiser, a little more certain, already learning how to arrive next time. You do not remember learning to walk. Not as a picture, not as a story, but your body remembers in the way it trusts the ground without asking questions. You breathe in slow and easy. You breathe out, letting the air fall away on its own. The shoreline is quieter now, as if it has decided to listen instead of speak. The tide has pulled back just enough to reveal damp sand, smooth and untouched, waiting. Learning begins here, before knowing, before intention. You imagine yourself small, closer to the ground than the sky. Not worried about falling, because falling is simply what happens next. There is no failure yet. There is only sensation, a shift forward, a wobble, a gentle meeting with the floor. You do not apologize to the ground. The ground does not judge you. It receives you every time patiently. This is how animals learn to move. This is how machines must learn too. In robotics, no one begins with instructions like a list of rules carved into stone. Instead, a body is placed into the world and allowed to experience it. A limb presses, a joint bends, something resists, something gives. Sensors notice pressure the way skin notices touch. Not as numbers, not as commands, but as quiet signals that say, here you are. You feel your own weight again, how it settles differently depending on how you stand. Your body learned this without needing to understand it. It learned by being there. The shoreline offers a similar lesson. Each retreat of the tide leaves behind patterns that teach the next wave how far it can go. No wave remembers the one before it. And yet, somehow, the motion improves. You smile slightly at that thought. Learning without memory feels like magic. But it is really just patience wearing a clever disguise. You breathe in. The air feels a little warmer now. You breathe out. Somewhere, something small adjusts. Robots learning to move begin with exploration. A step that goes nowhere. A shift that changes nothing. A fall that teaches everything. This is not inefficiency. This is curiosity. You think about how often you wish you could learn new things without embarrassment, without the sharp edge of expectation. Babies do not worry about dignity. Machines do not either, at least not yet. There is something comforting in that. A reminder that learning does not require awareness to be meaningful. Feedback arrives softly. Pressure here. A resistance there. The system adjusts not because it knows why, but because something feels different now. You place your attention on your feet. You notice how they spread slightly, how toes relax when they are allowed to. You have done this thousands of times without ever congratulating yourself. Good job, you whisper inwardly just in case. Your feet remain humble. The science here is gentle. Machine learning, at its quietest, is not about prediction or control. It is about letting a body explore until patterns settle into comfort. Animals do this constantly. A cat stretches before jumping, not to calculate but to feel ready. A dog slips on a smooth floor once, then never quite steps the same way again. You imagine a robot doing something similar, adjusting its movement after a small surprise. Not embarrassed, just informed. The shoreline changes slowly as the tide recedes further. Tiny rivulets form, then disappear. The sand rearranges itself without complaint. Learning is not loud. It does not announce itself. Often it looks like nothing at all. You breathe in. You breathe out. Your chest rises and falls, a motion learned so early it feels like it was always there. Machines learn this way too, through repetition that feels almost boring. Again, and again, and again. There is gentle humor in that if you let yourself notice it. All this advanced science, all this careful design, and the lesson is still the same as it was on the living room floor long ago. Try, fall, try again. The tide pauses now as if thinking. It has gathered enough information for the moment. You feel a subtle shift inside you, a readiness forming without urgency. Learning does not need to be watched to happen. It unfolds whether anyone is paying attention or not. Robots do not need to understand that they are learning. Neither did you. You allow your shoulders to drop. Your jaw softens. Your breath deepens just a little more. The shoreline is preparing something, though nothing is visible yet. The water has pulled back, not to leave, but to return with better timing. Learning before knowing feels like this: a quiet gathering, a soft recalibration. You sense that the next movement will come not from effort, but from readiness. From bodies, organic or mechanical, that have listened long enough to trust what they feel. The tide waits. You wait with it, and somewhere beneath the surface, motion is already remembering how to arrive again. You notice your breath before you notice anything else. Not because you try to, but because it quietly arrives. Your chest rises. Your chest falls. No instruction required. The shoreline rests in a deeper calm now, as if the world has settled into its own body. The light spreads softly across the water. Not bright, just present. You feel warmth gathering along your skin, subtle and reassuring. Like the day is stretching without hurry. Your body listens constantly. It listens to gravity. It listens to balance. It listens to the air brushing past you. You do not tell it how. Animals move this way too. They do not calculate their next step in words or plans. They sense inwardly, and motion emerges naturally from that listening. This is where robotics begins to soften. Early machines were rigid, unyielding, always pushing forward with certainty. But bodies in nature are rarely certain. They adapt. They give way. They respond. You shift your weight slightly, and the ground responds by holding you. The conversation is mutual. You lean. The earth answers. Soft robotics grows from this idea. Bodies built not to dominate space, but to feel it. Materials that bend. Structures that stretch. Forms that adjust before they resist. You breathe in slowly, letting the idea settle. You breathe out, feeling how your ribs move without asking permission. Listening bodies learn faster because they are not busy insisting. You imagine a robotic limb made of gentle materials, pressing into the ground. It does not force itself forward. It waits for sensation. Pressure arrives. Resistance whispers back. That whisper becomes guidance. Sensors are not treated as instruments here. They are treated as senses. They feel tension. They notice contact. They respond to subtle change. You realize your own body does this constantly. Muscles adjust before you are aware of them. Balance corrects itself without interrupting your thoughts. Intelligence lives everywhere, not just behind your eyes. There is something comforting about that. A reminder that you are supported by systems older than language. The shoreline reflects this wisdom. Wet sand compresses under your feet, then slowly reshapes itself when you step away. Nothing complains. Nothing clings. You smile faintly at the thought that sand might be the most emotionally mature thing here. Roboticists learn from animals that movement is not a command issued from above. It is a conversation held throughout the body. Tendons speak to joints. Pressure informs posture. Motion emerges like an answer, not an order. You breathe in. The air hums quietly, distant and steady. You breathe out. Your shoulders soften again, grateful for the reminder. When machines are allowed to listen, they move differently. They stop fighting the world. They start cooperating with it. Soft bodies do not panic when something unexpected happens. They adapt. They redistribute force. They settle into new shapes. You think about how often you try to remain rigid when flexibility would feel kinder. Your spine responds with a gentle complaint, just enough to make the point. You adjust. Thanks you. There is gentle humor in that exchange. Your body has opinions. It always has. Robots built to listen develop opinions too, though quieter ones. They sense when a surface is uneven. They respond when weight shifts unexpectedly. They do not need to know why. They only need to feel. Listening creates resilience. Animals survive not because they are strong, but because they are responsive. They yield when necessary. They push when invited. They rest when it feels right. You notice your breath slow even further. The rhythm feels settled now, like waves matching the shore without effort. Soft robotics borrows this rhythm. Movement becomes fluid, adaptive, alive in a quiet way. The machine does not rush to correct itself. It lets the body figure things out through sensation. You place awareness on your hands. Notice how they relax when nothing is required of them. They know when to rest. There is intelligence in rest too. The shoreline shifts slightly as a breeze passes over the water. Tiny ripples form and fade. The surface listens to the air, just as bodies listen to force. You feel grounded not because you are still, but because you are connected. Connection creates calm. Machines that listen move more naturally because they are not trying to impress anyone. They are simply responding to what is there. You imagine a robot stepping onto sand for the first time. Its body yields. It sinks slightly. Sensors awaken. Information flows gently through its structure. No alarm. No urgency. Just adjustment. That feels familiar. You remember learning to adapt without noticing. Walking barefoot on different surfaces. Adjusting your stride without thinking. Trusting sensation over planning. Your body learned this through listening. Machines can too. You breathe in. You breathe out. The warmth of the morning settles deeper now, like a soft promise kept. Listening bodies do not need perfect conditions. They work with what they receive. They adapt to the moment rather than resisting it. This applies to you as well. You allow yourself to exist without effort for a few seconds longer. Nothing demands anything. Everything functions quietly in the background. The shoreline feels closer now, not physically, but emotionally. It mirrors your stillness. It reflects your patience. Sand shifts gently under a careful step nearby. The ground adjusts without complaint, already learning how to hold the next movement. And you sense, without hurry, that balance itself is preparing to speak next. You are standing, but not as still as you imagine. There is a subtle movement passing through you, a quiet sway that never fully stops. Your body leans forward just enough to notice, then back, then settles somewhere in between. You breathe in slowly. You breathe out even more slowly. Balance meets you where you are. The shoreline mirrors this gentle motion. Water advances. Water retreats. Nothing stays exactly where it was, and nothing needs to. You feel the ground beneath your feet responding to your weight. It holds you, but not rigidly. There is room to shift, to adjust, to negotiate this moment together. Balance, you realize, is not something you achieve and keep. It is something you participate in. Animals understand this instinctively. A deer pauses mid-step, adjusts, and continues without comment. A bird lands, wings flicking once, twice, then folding away. There is no announcement of success. Robotics learns balance by listening to these quiet negotiations. Not through formulas shouted over noise, but through feedback that whispers. A lean becomes a question. A correction becomes an answer. You feel reassured by that. It means you are not expected to be perfect, only responsive. Your body is full of tiny conversations. Muscles speak to joints. Pressure informs posture. Everything checks in constantly, politely, without drama. You sway again, almost playfully this time. Your body adjusts before the thought completes. Feels like trust. Machines learn balance in this same trusting way. They are allowed to lean. They are allowed to fall. They are allowed to learn from both. There is gentle humor in watching something carefully designed tip over anyway. Even precision needs practice. Even planning needs permission to be wrong. You smile faintly at the thought. Falling is not failure. It is information delivered with enthusiasm. The shoreline offers its own lessons. Each wave arrives slightly differently, correcting itself mid-motion. The water never insists on perfection. It simply adapts. You breathe in. The air carries a soft hum, distant and steady. You breathe out. Your shoulders release again, grateful for the reminder. Balance lives in this release, not in stiffness, not in control, but in responsiveness. Robots that learn balance are taught to listen to their own bodies. Sensors notice tilt. Structures feel strain. Control systems respond gently, not forcefully. The correction is small, almost invisible. Like your own sway, you imagine a robot standing where you stand now, feeling the same pull of gravity. It leans, corrects. It leans again, not panicked, just curious. Animals rarely freeze when balance shifts. They move with it. They adjust their center. They trust the process. You remember moments when you lost balance briefly and recovered without thinking. Stepping on uneven ground. Reaching too far. Catching yourself mid-motion. Your body handled it quietly. No alarms. No lectures. That calm intelligence is what robotics studies so carefully. The ability to correct without overreacting. To listen instead of shouting commands. Balance is not rigidity. It is softness with awareness. The shoreline glows a little brighter now. The light feels warmer, more settled. The world seems comfortable with its own motion. You place your attention on your feet again. Notice how pressure shifts from heel to toe. Notice how your body responds without asking permission. There is something deeply comforting about knowing you are held by systems that know what to do. Robotic balance works the same way. Tiny adjustments layered over time create stability. No single correction matters much. Together they create calm. You breathe in. You breathe out. The rhythm steadies. Engineers learn that balance improves when machines are allowed to move slightly wrong. When corrections are gentle instead of sharp. When learning is allowed to be slow. This feels familiar. You have learned many things this way. Quietly. Without applause. The shoreline remains patient. Water shifts around small stones, adjusting its path effortlessly. Nothing resists more than necessary. You feel warmth spread through your chest, a reassurance that you do not need to brace yourself so tightly. Balance will meet you halfway. A seabird passes overhead, wings adjusting midair. It does not pause to consider the wind. It simply responds. That is balance. Not certainty. Not stillness. Dialogue. Machines that balance well feel almost alive in this way. They respond fluidly. They move with their environment instead of against it. You notice how your breath has slowed, how your body feels heavier, more supported. Gravity no longer feels like a threat. Balance becomes trust. The shoreline shifts again, subtle and unremarkable. Sand compresses under a passing step, then releases. The ground learns how to hold. You sense the next idea forming gently, like a step taken without thought. Movement that no longer needs planning. Motion that happens simply because the body knows how. And as the seabird disappears into the warming light, you feel balance settle into something quieter still, already preparing to let movement happen without thinking. You take a step forward without announcing it to yourself. Then another. Your body moves and your thoughts follow behind, slightly surprised to be included at all. The shoreline stretches ahead, wide and forgiving. The sand is cool beneath your feet, holding your weight without complaint. You do not calculate how much pressure to apply. You do not decide where each toe should land. Walking simply happens. You breathe in. You breathe out. Your steps fall into rhythm with that breath. Once, long ago, walking required your full attention. Every shift of weight mattered. Every wobble felt important. Now it unfolds quietly, like a story your body tells itself while your mind rests. Animals move this way all the time. A horse walks without rehearsing. A cat pads across uneven ground without hesitation. Their bodies know what to do because they have practiced without thinking. Robotics studies this kind of knowing with deep patience. Researchers watch animals move, not to copy their shapes, but to understand their ease. They notice that walking is not controlled moment by moment. It is allowed to emerge. You feel warmth spreading through your legs as you walk. Muscles engage just enough, then release. Nothing strains. Nothing rushes. This is what engineers call a gait, though the word feels too stiff for what it really is. A gait is simply a rhythm the body trusts. A pattern discovered through repetition, not instruction. You smile faintly at the thought that your body learned this without ever reading a manual. If it did, it would probably skip the instructions anyway. Robots begin their walking journeys awkwardly. Steps are cautious. Movements feel tentative. But when they are allowed to explore, something changes. Instead of being told how to walk, they are given time to feel. A step lands. The ground pushes back. The body adjusts. Again, and again, and again. Slowly, movement smooths out. not because it is forced to, but because roughness requires more effort. Efficiency becomes comfort. You notice how your feet roll gently from heel to toe. You have not thought about this in years. Your body handles it like a trusted routine. Walking without thinking feels safe, feels earned. The shoreline reflects this wisdom. Waves do not plan their arrival. They do not debate the angle or the force. They follow a rhythm shaped by countless arrivals before. Each wave teaches the next without ever meeting it. You breathe in deeply now, chest rising with ease. You breathe out slowly, letting your shoulders drop. Your pace remains unhurried. In robotics, when walking is over-controlled, it looks stiff, careful, nervous. But when control loosens, something almost alive appears. The machine begins to trust its body. Sensors guide movement quietly. Corrections become subtle. You think about how you walk differently on soft sand than on firm ground. Your steps shorten. Your knees bend slightly more. You do not announce these changes. They happen. This adaptability fascinates scientists. Not because it is complex, but because it is simple. Your body adjusts without thinking because it listens. Robots learn this too when given permission. They experiment with step length. They feel resistance. They settle into what works. There is gentle humor in watching a machine learn to walk. It looks serious, concentrating deeply on something you do while daydreaming. Effort eventually gives way to ease. You feel grounded now, your steps steady and warm. Each footfall presses briefly into the sand, then lifts away. Footprints appear behind you, clear and temporary. Movement leaves traces, but it does not cling to them. The science of walking reveals something kind. That intelligence does not always need supervision. That once patterns settle, the mind can rest. You allow your thoughts to drift as your body continues forward. Walking carries you without effort. The shoreline seems to move with you. Robots that walk well often do less thinking, not more. They rely on their bodies to handle the details. Control becomes a gentle guide instead of a strict overseer. You appreciate this deeply. It feels like permission to stop micromanaging yourself. The sand changes texture beneath your feet. Softer here, firmer there. Your body adjusts without comment. You remember times when you tripped slightly and recovered instantly. No panic, no analysis, just movement continuing. That quiet recovery is what engineers hope to give machines. The ability to keep going without drama. Walking is not a sequence of perfect steps. It is a continuous flow of small corrections. A dance with gravity that feels effortless once learned. You breathe in. You breathe out. Your steps remain steady. Animals rarely think about walking unless something interrupts it. They trust the rhythm. Robots are learning to do the same. The shoreline glows brighter now, sunlight stretching across the water. The world feels awake, but still calm. You notice your pace slowing naturally. There is no destination demanding urgency. Movement is its own reward. Engineers learn that the most natural walking emerges when they interfere less. When they let bodies find their own solutions. When exploration replaces control. This feels reassuring beyond science. It suggests that you, too, might function better with a little less instruction. You take another step, and another. Your body continues without asking for feedback. Footprints behind you soften as the sand relaxes. Edges blur. Soon they will disappear entirely. Movement does not need to be preserved to matter. You feel warmth in your chest, a quiet contentment. Walking without thinking feels like trust made visible. The shoreline remains patient. Waves arrive and retreat, unconcerned with perfection. They move because movement is what they do. You slow to a stop eventually, not because you plan to, but because it feels right. Your body settles. Your breath deepens. Walking has taught you something without saying a word. The sand behind you smooths itself, erasing evidence of effort. The shore prepares for the next arrival. And as the last clear footprint fades, you sense the next idea forming gently, like a movement learned by watching others, waiting quietly to be tried. You slow down enough to watch instead of move. Your body remains warm and steady, breath drifting in and out like a familiar tide. The shoreline feels attentive now, as if it has turned its focus outward, curious rather than active. Learning does not always begin with doing. Sometimes it begins with noticing. You watch the waves arrive, each one slightly different, each one shaped by the last without ever meeting it. There is no instruction passed between them, only rhythm. Animals learn this way. They watch before they act. A young animal observes how others move, not to copy exactly, but to feel the timing, the pauses, the ease. Robots are taught to do the same. Imitation in robotics is not mimicry. It is not about recreating motion like a mirror. It is about absorbing pattern, about letting the body feel what motion might be. You breathe in slowly. You breathe out, letting your jaw soften. Observation feels restful. When a robot watches an animal walk, it does not memorize angles or positions. It notices flow. It senses rhythm. It learns when effort increases and when it fades away. You realize you have done this your entire life. You learned gestures by watching others. You learned posture. You learned how to relax into a chair by seeing someone else sink comfortably into theirs. There is gentle humor in this realization. So much of you is borrowed, and somehow it still feels entirely your own. The shoreline demonstrates imitation quietly. The tide mirrors the moon without understanding it. The water rises and falls, following a pull it never names. Robots learn movement through demonstration. A human or an animal moves and the machine observes, not to become identical, but to understand intention through motion. You feel comforted by that distinction. Imitation does not erase individuality. It reveals possibility. You watch a bird land near the water. Its movement is smooth, confident, unconcerned with being watched. The bird does not know it is teaching anything. That is often how wisdom travels, unaware of itself. You breathe in. The air carries a distant hum. You breathe out. Your shoulders drop again. Repetition deepens learning. Watching the same motion again and again allows patterns to settle without effort. The body begins to anticipate without thinking. Robots that learn this way do not rush. They watch patiently. They repeat the observation until something clicks. Quietly. You remember watching someone skilled at something you did not yet know how to do. The calm confidence. The absence of struggle. It made the action feel possible. That feeling matters. Robotic imitation captures that sense of possibility. It allows machines to move toward ease rather than force. You notice the water reflecting light now, shimmering gently. The surface responds to movement without holding onto it. Imitation works best when it is soft, when it allows room for adjustment, when it invites exploration rather than obedience. You think about how exhausting it feels to copy someone perfectly, and how freeing it feels to borrow only what works. Robots learn better that way too. They observe, they try, they adjust, again and again. There is no urgency in this process. No countdown. Learning unfolds in its own time. You breathe in deeply, chest rising comfortably. You breathe out slowly, letting your weight settle. The shoreline feels expansive now, open and patient. It has watched countless movements and retained only what mattered. Engineers learn that imitation should never be rigid. A copied movement must be allowed to change once it enters a new body. Otherwise, it becomes brittle. You appreciate this insight beyond science. It feels like permission to learn gently, to take what resonates, to let the rest go. The tide continues its quiet rehearsal. Arrive, retreat, arrive again. Each return slightly wiser, though no memory is kept. Robots trained through imitation begin to move with surprising grace. Not perfect, but relaxed, responsive. You feel a soft warmth spread through your chest at that thought. Grace feels like kindness in motion. You allow yourself to watch your own breath again. How it arrives, how it leaves. Never quite the same. You did not invent this rhythm. You inherited it. The shoreline hums softly. The light feels settled. Everything seems content to continue as it is. Imitation has done its work quietly. Learning has happened without effort. The tide pauses, then begins its return, guided by a rhythm it never questions, already preparing the ground for the next kind of movement, one that will grow from inside rather than observation alone. You feel your muscles without flexing them. They are there, warm and patient, holding you without announcing their work. Nothing strains. Nothing demands attention. The shoreline rests in a quieter rhythm now. Waves still arrive, but they do not crash. They fold into the sand, release their energy, and slip back again. Strength here is subtle. You breathe in slowly. You breathe out. Your body softens just enough to notice itself. Muscles, you realize, are not engines. They are listeners. They respond to need, then relax again. Animals understand this instinctively. A cat does not hold tension longer than required. A bird rests between wing beats. Strength appears only when invited. Robotics learns this lesson carefully. Early machines relied on rigid power. Hard joints, relentless force. Movement looked impressive, but it was tiring, brittle, unforgiving. Soft systems changed everything. Artificial muscles are designed to behave less like metal and more like living tissue. They stretch. They contract. They yield when pushed. You imagine a robotic limb bending slightly under pressure instead of resisting it. The response feels calmer already. You place a hand on your arm and feel the quiet firmness beneath the skin. Muscle is responsive strength, not constant tension. It activates, then rests. You smile faintly at how long it took humanity to notice this obvious truth. In robotics, artificial muscles work through gentle signals rather than harsh commands. Energy flows smoothly. Motion emerges gradually. Nothing snaps into place. You breathe in. The air feels warm now, steady. You breathe out, releasing any effort you forgot you were holding. Tendons play their role quietly. They store energy. They release it when needed. They make movement efficient. Animals move gracefully because their bodies recycle effort. They do not waste energy fighting themselves. Robots learn to do the same. Artificial tendons stretch and recoil, easing the burden on motors. Movement becomes lighter, more fluid. There is comfort in this idea, that strength can feel like rest. You notice how your posture adjusts when you relax. Your body aligns itself naturally when you stop forcing it. Balance improves without instruction. Machines discover this too. When effort decreases, coordination improves. Softness allows clarity. The shoreline offers a perfect demonstration. A wave rises gently, then collapses into foam. The strength was never about impact. It was about timing. You breathe in. You breathe out. Your chest rises and falls like the tide. Artificial muscles respond continuously. They do not wait for perfect information. They adjust moment by moment, feeling their way forward. This responsiveness makes robots safer, calmer, more adaptable. They no longer need to overpower the world. They cooperate with it. You think about how often you try to solve problems by pushing harder. Your shoulders tense slightly at the thought. You notice and they soften again. Gentle humor drifts in with that realization. Even now, your body knows when you are overdoing it. Roboticists learn that efficiency feels like ease. When movement looks relaxed, it usually is. Machines built with artificial muscles move in a way that feels almost biological. Not perfect, but forgiving. They absorb small mistakes. They recover quietly. They conserve energy by yielding first. You feel warmth spreading through your limbs, a pleasant heaviness. Rest feels productive here. The science remains calm. No numbers, no urgency, just systems responding to sensation. Artificial muscles can change stiffness. They can become firm when needed, soft when not. This adaptability allows robots to handle uncertainty without panic. You appreciate that deeply. Uncertainty feels less threatening when flexibility is allowed. The shoreline shifts as the tide turns again. Water gathers, then releases. Nothing hoards energy unnecessarily. You breathe in slowly. You breathe out longer than before. Strength, you realize, is timing. It is knowing when to engage and when to let go. Animals mastered this long ago. Robots are learning now. You imagine a robot lifting an object gently, adjusting grip without squeezing too hard. Its artificial muscles respond to pressure, not instruction. The object remains safe. That image feels reassuring. A future where power listens. You feel supported by the ground beneath you. Your muscles trust it. They do not brace unnecessarily. Artificial muscles allow machines to trust their environment too. They sense resistance and respond appropriately. They relax into contact instead of fighting it. There is something almost soothing about watching efficient movement. Calms the observer as well. The shoreline glows softly. Light reflects off the water in slow patterns. Everything seems to move with intention but without effort. You notice your breath again. It remains steady, unforced. A perfect example of responsive strength. Machines that move this way feel less mechanical, more present, more aware. You feel comfort in knowing that the future of robotics values gentleness. That progress does not require hardness. A wave breaks quietly nearby, dispersing its energy without drama. Foam settles. Water retreats. You sense the next idea forming slowly, like pressure meeting ground, like touch preceding movement. Muscles, whether biological or artificial, are preparing to feel what lies beneath them, ready to listen before they act. You slow your steps until movement almost disappears. Then you stop. Your feet remain where they are, pressed gently into the ground, and you notice something you usually overlook. Texture. Coolness rises through the soles of your feet. The sand feels firm in some places, softer in others, quietly uneven. You did not ask for this information. It arrived anyway. You breathe in slowly. You breathe out. Your body listens before your thoughts catch up. The shoreline feels closer now, intimate in a way that has nothing to do with distance. Water has pulled back, leaving the sand darker, smoother, faintly cool. When you shift your weight, the ground responds immediately. Feeling comes first. Understanding follows later. Animals move this way instinctively. Paw presses down and the earth answers. A hoof meets stone and the body adjusts. Touch guides motion without explanation. Robotics learns something essential here. Before a machine can move confidently, it must feel where it is. Not see, not measure. Feel. You imagine sensors embedded beneath artificial skin, waiting patiently. They do not analyze. They notice. Pressure increases. Vibration hums softly. Resistance speaks. This is not data yet. This is contact. You curl your toes slightly, then relax them. The sand shifts, settles, accepts. Your body responds without urgency. Robotic touch works the same way. Sensors detect contact and relay sensation through the body. Not to command movement, but to inform it. You feel reassured by this order of events. Feeling before action. Sensing before decision. Too often, action comes first. Here it waits. The shoreline demonstrates this patience perfectly. Waves do not rush onto unfamiliar ground. They arrive, feel resistance, spread gently, then retreat. Each return carries memory without thought. Robots equipped with tactile sensing learn faster because they are not guessing. They know when something pushes back. They know when a surface gives way. They know when to soften their response. You breathe in. The air carries a distant hum, almost imperceptible. You breathe out. Your weight settles deeper. Touch creates trust. When machines feel the ground, they stop fearing it. Unexpected surfaces become conversations rather than threats. Uneven terrain becomes guidance. You think about walking barefoot for the first time on a new surface. Cold tile, warm wood, rough stone. Your body adjusted instantly without panic. That same adaptability is what robotics seeks. Artificial skin can feel pressure distributed across a surface. It can detect slipping before it becomes falling. It can notice vibration that suggests instability. These sensations are quiet. They do not shout. They whisper adjustments into motion. You smile softly at the thought that even machines benefit from subtlety. The shoreline cools as the water retreats further. Your feet remain warm despite it. Balance and touch are working together now. You breathe in slowly. You breathe out longer. When machines lack touch, they move cautiously, stiffly, uncertain of where they stand. With touch, movement relaxes. Confidence grows. You understand this personally. Uncertainty fades when sensation provides reassurance. Robotic touch allows machines to interact gently with the world, to grasp without crushing, to step without slipping, to adapt without alarm. You imagine a robot stepping onto wet sand for the first time. Its sensors awaken. Pressure distributes unevenly. The body responds by adjusting stance. No calculation announced. No hesitation dramatized. Just adaptation. The science here remains quiet. Touch is not about control. It is about awareness. You notice how your own hands rest easily at your sides. They feel the air, the temperature, the space around them. They are always sensing, even when still. Machines learn this too. Feeling does not stop when motion pauses. It continues, providing context. You feel warmth in your chest as this idea settles. Awareness does not require effort. It requires openness. The shoreline reflects light softly now, surface broken into gentle patterns. Everything seems content to remain as it is. Robots that feel the ground move with more care. They respect contact. They respond proportionally. You appreciate this deeply. Care feels like intelligence wearing kindness. You breathe in. You breathe out. Your breath matches the slow rhythm of retreating water. Touch teaches restraint. It encourages listening over reaction. Machines that feel do not need to rush decisions. They gather sensation first. They wait. You think about how often you wish you could pause and feel before acting. Your body already does this for you quietly. The shoreline remains patient. Sand cools under your feet as water slips away. The ground adjusts to absence as easily as it adjusted to contact. You feel grounded, supported, informed without being overwhelmed. Touch has done its work. Wet sand smooths itself as the last wave recedes, leaving behind a calm surface that remembers pressure without holding it. And as the shoreline reshapes itself gently, you sense the next idea forming, like a body learning to trust change, ready to adapt without resistance. You take another slow step, and immediately something changes. The ground feels different beneath your feet, softer than before, less certain. Without pausing to think, your body responds. Your knees bend slightly more. Your steps shorten. Your weight spreads wider. You did not plan this adjustment. It arrived on its own. You breathe in. You breathe out. Adaptation happens quietly, like a trusted reflex waking up. The shoreline looks the same at first glance, but you feel the difference instantly. Wet sand gives way more easily than dry sand. Your body listens and responds without commentary. This is trust. Animals adapt this way constantly. A fox changes its gait in snow. A bird adjusts its landing in wind. They do not stop to reconsider who they are. They simply become what the moment asks for. Robots are learning this kind of trust. Adaptation in robotics is not about predicting every possible situation. It is about responding well to what actually happens. The body senses change. The movement adjusts. You feel comfort in that distinction. Prediction feels heavy. Responsiveness feels light. You notice how your breath deepens when your steps feel secure again. Confidence returns without effort. Robotic systems that adapt well do not cling to rigid plans. They rely on feedback moment by moment. Pressure shifts. Resistance changes. The body responds accordingly. You think about how stressful it feels when you try to control every outcome. Your shoulders tense just remembering it. You notice and they soften. Gentle humor flickers there. Even now, your body is better at adaptation than your thoughts. The shoreline demonstrates this wisdom effortlessly. Water meets rock differently than it meets sand. The wave does not argue with the surface. It reshapes itself. You breathe in slowly. You breathe out, letting the idea settle deeper. In robotics, adaptation is often described as learning to trust feedback. Sensors report what is happening now, not what was expected. Control systems respond gently without panic. This creates movement that feels calm, reliable, alive. You walk a few more steps, feeling how your body negotiates each change in texture. Tiny muscles activate and release. Balance shifts continuously. You are not aware of most of this. And yet it works. That quiet competence feels reassuring. Robots that adapt well behave similarly. They do not announce each correction. They do not overreact. They simply adjust. You imagine a robot walking across mixed terrain. Firm ground becomes uneven. Sensors detect the change. The stride adapts. No alarm. No stiffness. Just responsiveness. Adaptation is not about being ready for everything. It is about trusting that the body can handle something. You breathe in. The air feels steady. You breathe out. Your weight settles again. Animals embody this trust completely. They do not carry yesterday's terrain into today's movement. Each moment is met freshly. Robots learn this through experience. They encounter variation. They respond. They refine. Again and again. Learning becomes embedded in the body rather than stored as instructions. Adaptation lives in the way movement feels, not in rules. You appreciate this deeply. It feels like permission to stop rehearsing the future. The shoreline changes subtly as the tide shifts direction. Channels carved earlier begin to soften. Edges blur. Nothing resists the change. Nothing clings. You feel warmth in your chest, a sense of ease. Adaptation does not require effort when trust is present. Roboticists discover that adaptive systems perform better when corrections are small and continuous. Large, dramatic changes create instability. Gentle adjustments create flow. This mirrors your own experience. You adjust best when you do not criticize yourself mid-step. You smile faintly at that thought. Your body continues forward, adapting without fuss. Sand that once felt uncertain now feels familiar. Trust builds quickly. Robots adapt the same way. What was once unpredictable becomes navigable through experience. You breathe in. You breathe out. The rhythm feels settled again. Adaptation allows movement to continue without interruption. Prevents hesitation. Keeps the conversation with the world alive. The shoreline reflects sunlight in soft patterns now. Everything appears in motion, yet nothing feels rushed. You notice how adaptation makes you feel safer, not more cautious. Responsiveness replaces fear. Robotic systems designed this way move more confidently. They are not brittle. They recover easily. You imagine a robot encountering an unexpected slope. His body leans slightly. The steps shorten. Balance returns. That image feels calming. Adaptation is not a reaction to danger. It is a relationship with change. You pause again, letting your body settle. Your feet feel supported. Your breath remains slow. The shoreline continues reshaping itself quietly. Sand rearranges grain by grain. Water traces new paths without effort. Trust looks like this. Change without resistance. Movement without anxiety. You feel grounded in that understanding. Adaptation does not mean losing stability. It means redefining it moment by moment. Robots that adapt well feel less mechanical because they are less afraid of variation. They do not need perfect conditions. They work with what is present. You appreciate that beyond science. Life rarely offers perfect ground. You breathe in slowly. You breathe out longer. The shoreline settles into a new shape, already comfortable with it. And as the water smooths the sand into unfamiliar patterns, you sense the next idea forming gently, like movement learning not just to adapt alone, but to move in quiet harmony with others nearby. You step lightly along the shoreline and notice others moving nearby. Perhaps a flock of birds shifts in the sky, or small creatures dart across the sand. They move as a group, but no one leads with urgency. No one commands. The alignment feels natural, effortless, deliberate without thought. You breathe in slowly. You breathe out. Your body feels connected to this rhythm. Animals have long known how to move together. A school of fish twists through the water in silent communication. A herd of deer navigates a field without collisions. A flock of birds curves midair, wings adjusting seamlessly. The secret is simple responsiveness. Each body notices the others. Each step or wing beat slightly adjusts to maintain harmony. No central plan is required. Movement emerges from awareness. Robotics learns this quietly. Researchers study swarms of machines, observing how simple rules can guide collective motion. Each robot responds to its neighbors, adjusting pace, direction, and position. The result is synchronized movement that looks almost alive. You feel warmth spread through your chest as you watch. There is reassurance in knowing intelligence can be shared. It does not need to sit in one mind or one body, can float across many. You take a slow step forward, sensing how your own motion affects the world around you. Small shifts ripple outward, touching the pace of others without thought. You are aware of presence and space, and it feels gentle. A flock of birds arcs overhead. They adjust as one, not by instruction, but by sensing each other's movements. You notice how they anticipate turns, how they yield to space. There is humor here too. Slight wobble, a hurried adjustment, then perfect alignment resumes. Even mastery has tiny imperfections. Robots practicing this learn in similar ways. Minor deviations are not failures. They are part of the system. The swarm stabilizes through subtle responses rather than rigid control. You breathe in slowly, chest rising with the rhythm of awareness. You breathe out, letting tension release. Your body and mind feel lighter knowing that harmony does not require perfection. Animals often move this way in daily life. A crab scuttles alongside its neighbors, adjusting claws and pace. A colony of ants navigates uneven terrain in near silence. Their collective motion is seamless, even though each individual makes decisions based on its immediate senses. Robotic swarms mimic this decentralized intelligence. Each unit senses its environment, each neighbor, and adjusts accordingly. No one robot controls the rest, yet the group moves fluidly. You notice how your own steps might match an unseen rhythm. Perhaps it is the waves. Perhaps it is the awareness of others nearby. Either way, movement feels cooperative, not imposed. There is comfort in knowing that no single agent must carry the burden. Responsiveness becomes shared. Trust spreads naturally. You breathe in slowly. You breathe out. Harmony feels like a gentle wave washing over your nervous system. In robotics, swarms are taught simple rules. Keep distance, match speed, and align direction. From these small instructions, complex, lifelike behavior emerges. Observation, responsiveness, and adaptation form a subtle triangle of guidance. You smile softly at how the simplest ideas can produce the most elegant outcomes. Intelligence does not need to be complex to be beautiful. Animals move together for safety, for efficiency, for ease. Robotic swarms move together for similar reasons. Stability, coordination, cooperation. The underlying principle is the same. Motion is a conversation, not a command. You notice a small ripple in your awareness, how a step you take resonates slightly with the ground, with the air, with others moving nearby. You are part of a subtle network, connected without effort. The shoreline mirrors this quiet cooperation. Waves align briefly, crest together, then separate. Each wave responds to the next, to the wind, to the sand, yet none dominate. You feel grounded, aware of the vast yet intimate connection around you. Movement is no longer only yours, yet it is still yours to enjoy. Robots that move in swarms learn patience and anticipation. They sense neighbors, react to environmental changes, and maintain cohesion. Independence and cooperation coexist beautifully. You take a slow breath in. You hold it just a moment, sensing the rhythm of collective motion. You breathe out. Your body softens into this gentle synchrony. There is humor here too. A bird flaps too late, a crab scuttles unexpectedly, and the rhythm wobbles briefly. Yet harmony returns effortlessly. Small mistakes are absorbed without alarm. You imagine a swarm of robots moving over rough terrain. Some hesitate, some speed up, yet the system remains graceful. Coordination is emergent, not imposed. Your mind settles into this realization. Trust multiplies when adaptation is distributed. Intelligence, whether in a flock, herd, school, or swarm, thrives when shared. The shoreline glows warmly in the light. Everything seems aware, patient, connected. You sense how this collective intelligence might inform the next step of movement. Perhaps each individual carries less responsibility, yet the group moves forward with confidence. Perhaps cooperation is the quiet path toward mastery. You breathe in, you breathe out, you notice your body swaying slightly, attuned to the unseen rhythm of shared motion. Robotic swarms offer lessons beyond engineering. They show that progress does not require domination, only sensitivity. They reveal that awareness, connection, and gentle responsiveness can produce elegance greater than any single effort. The waves continue to align and separate in subtle choreography. Each one obeys its own rules, each one notices the others, each one moves as part of something larger. You take another step, another, and you feel the movement of the group, the movement of the shoreline, the movement within yourself, flowing together quietly, harmoniously. And as the last wave smooths the sand into gentle curves, you sense the next idea forming, learning not just to move together, but to rest, to pause, and to allow the shoreline itself to remember and respond without haste. You pause. Your feet rest lightly on the sand, toes brushing the cool surface. The shoreline stretches before you, quiet and glowing in soft light. Movement has slowed to almost nothing, yet awareness remains alive. You breathe in slowly. You breathe out slowly. Each breath carries warmth through your chest and arms. Every inhale gathers calm. Every exhale releases tension. Animals, too, return to stillness. A bird perches on a driftwood log, eyes blinking slowly. A fox curls in the sand, its muscles relaxing fully. They are not idle. They are resting into understanding. Robots, like living creatures, also benefit from pauses. Even artificial systems learn while still, sensing the ground, adjusting circuits, storing lessons without fanfare. Learning does not require constant movement. It can happen quietly in the space between activity. You notice the subtle rhythm of your heartbeat, gentle and steady. It does not hurry. It does not demand. It simply exists, carrying knowledge of the day's motion, of all the steps you have taken. Soft sensors in robotics work similarly. Even when a machine pauses, its systems remain aware. Micro-adjustments continue. Feedback is absorbed, stored, and used when the next movement arrives. You smile faintly at this thought. Even in stillness, growth continues. Even in quiet, knowledge accumulates. The shoreline itself seems to breathe along with you. The tide retreats, leaving damp sand patterned with tiny ridges. Each wave's touch is remembered briefly, then released. The rhythm of water is patient and persistent, teaching without urgency. You breathe in, you breathe out. Your body feels lighter, supported by the soft firmness of the ground. Rest does not mean surrender. It does not erase what has been learned. Instead, it preserves, strengthens, and prepares. Robots follow this principle too. Artificial systems recharge, recalibrate, and reflect. Data gathered from motion is processed quietly. Movements made earlier inform movements yet to come. You feel the same principle within yourself. Lessons of balance, imitation, adaptation, and cooperation rest in your muscles, your joints, your awareness. They are part of you now, stored not as memory alone, but as potential. Animals embody this naturally. A bird awakens refreshed, wings ready to stretch. A fox rises alert but calm. Life continues, movement emerging easily when it is time. Robotic systems emulate this patience. They learn that efficiency is not continuous action. It is rest punctuated by motion. It is reflection punctuated by engagement. You inhale slowly, letting the air fill your chest fully. You exhale, letting shoulders drop, tension release. The warmth of your body seems to mingle with the soft glow of the shoreline. The lesson is gentle. Learning, whether in flesh or code, thrives in spaces of calm. Even uncertainty becomes manageable when given room to settle. You notice how quiet the world feels. The distant hum of water is steady, constant, reassuring. Even as you stand still, waves continue to arrive and retreat. Life, motion, and learning never truly stop. They flow gently in cycles. Robots, too, Maintain awareness during these quiet cycles. Artificial muscles relax. Sensors remain attuned. The system holds readiness without strain. You sense this same rhythm within yourself. Your feet press into the sand with just enough weight. Your posture is upright but relaxed. Your mind drifts softly, attentive but unhurried. Soft humor drifts briefly into your awareness. You remember how awkward learning can feel. The minor stumbles, the tentative steps, the imperfect attempts. Even these moments now seem like part of the gentle current that carries you forward. The shoreline mirrors this process. Each ripple left by the tide fades slowly. Impressions remain briefly, then dissolve. Memory is preserved in the shaping of the sand, but nothing clings unnecessarily. You breathe in, you breathe out. Each breath sinks with the retreating tide. Every inhale gathers insight. Every exhale lets motion rest. Robots, like animals, are not finished when they pause. They process experiences. They integrate lessons. They anticipate future motion without haste. You feel warmth spreading across your shoulders, down your arms, into your legs. Your body is fully aware, yet fully rested. Movement is prepared, not forced. Knowledge is ready, not demanded. The shoreline glows softly now, illuminated by the fading light. Waves have settled into quiet patterns. The sand is smooth, reflecting both the past movements and the anticipation of new ones. You inhale slowly. You exhale slowly. Calm rises like a tide within you. The future of movement is not rigid. It is not urgent. It is soft, attentive, and patient. Each step, whether taken or imagined, emerges from trust, awareness, and quiet learning. Robots, like living creatures, will continue to learn long after you leave this shoreline. Feedback, reflection, and rest guide them. They move forward, not hurried, not afraid, but ready to respond. You feel a final comfort in this. The world continues, motion continues, learning continues. Yet for now, you may simply exist, quietly aware of the life and intelligence flowing around you. The tide settles fully, its water drawn back to rest. The sand has learned its gentle curves. The world is calm, and you are part of this calm, breathing in rhythm with the slow, patient pulse of movement. And as you exhale one last time in this quiet moment, you feel the promise of continued motion, soft and attentive, ready to unfold whenever the time comes. The shoreline, the tide, and even the machines will remember, adapt, and move once again, with the same gentle patience that carries you through each breath.